That's well put.
You are up, my friend.
All right, thank you. All right, as Nick said, my name is Dave Delevante, and I've been doing this for 17 years in the health consulting, nutrition consulting realm, amongst some other things that I've done, an author and a life coach, etc. And I talk about cholesterol because it's fascinating. There's a lot of just mistruths out there. There's a lot of myths and bad stuff, and I think we need to clarify a few things. And the reason, I'll tell you why I kind of got started in the nutrition realm was my degree was in naval architecture. I used to design ships for 23 years. And what happened was my wife there to my left, and then I've got 4 beautiful children, and my son-in-law, Rodney. My wife had some health issues that brought on a bunch of fatigue and that sort of thing. And through nutrition, we were able to help her tremendously and get her quality of life back. And that kind of put on a road about 17 years ago into pursuing this. And I keep bumping up against this cholesterol issue all the time. I get questions about it all the time. It's just, and like I said, there's a lot of bad information. Now, 2 weeks ago, I did a talk on pre-diabetes, and the pre-diabetes talk and this talk, they go hand in hand. So we recorded it, thanks to Nick. So if you just go after this, anytime after this, just go to diabetes.daviddelevante.com, and it's a YouTube video. You won't have to download anything, and you can watch a 30-minute video on pre-diabetes. And the reason why I say that is that that's kind of the foundation of what you need to eat, the lifestyle changes that you need to make on the diabetes side, but it all helps with the cholesterol side, and you're going to see how they're completely linked together by the end of this 30 minutes here. And we will record this, and I'll probably think of some amazingly inventive name like cholesterol.daviddelevante.com. That'll be available in a few days. But do go ahead and watch this other video because it's going to be very, very important for as far as just the foundation. You're going to see a couple of slides here that are similar, and you'll see where I'll bring them together in just a few moments. But again, today's health reality is we're not going to die of diphtheria. We're not going to die of contagious diseases, most likely. And unless you're in a mission field or something like that, most of us are going to die from something degenerative. Last week we talked about diabetes, but the cardiovascular and the stroke side and all the things that are related to high cholesterol, if you look at those, that's another over 20 million people yearly that are getting affected by these diseases. So very important that we go over this. I'm going to very quickly I'm going to breeze through 3 slides for you. I won't take a lot of time on these, but bottom line is the way we should eat should regulate our blood sugar in a very small, narrow, beautifully healthy range. The way we do eat, typically we are kind of rocking and rolling our insulin levels, our blood sugar's flying up and down, we eat very poorly, and again, watch the other video and you'll see the correct ways to eat to keep this from happening. But the bottom line is when you do that process and you eat poorly, particularly for breakfast to start off your day, you're going to eat a lot more calories, your blood sugar is going to get out of whack, etc. And then if you do that for a number of years, you're going to find that you'll be able to keep up. Your pancreas will be able to keep up for quite a long time if you eat poorly, high sugars, high glycemic foods, things like that. But sometimes after 2 years, sometimes after 20 years, but eventually you're going to find that your pancreas just can't keep up anymore, and your insulin production goes down. And when your insulin production goes down, unfortunately, your glucose levels go up, and that's when you become pre-diabetic. It's kind of what we covered last week. But those same eating habits are very much related to the cholesterol issue as well. A big part of that, again, is this food pyramid that really needs to be flipped upside down. They're telling us out there that the healthy way to eat is to eat a tremendous amount, 6 to 11 servings of bread. I mean, this is insane. Pasta, rice, cereal, 6 to 11 servings, So it just doesn't make a lot of sense, but that's what we're doing with the American diet, and frankly, almost all around the world it's happening now. So we want to do something about that. We want to flip that, like I said, upside down. So cholesterol. let's switch over now. Talked a little about how to eat well, how to keep your blood sugar level in a nice range. But everyone that goes to the doctor will say, well, normal cholesterol is 200 and you're 220, so we want to put you on a cholesterol-lowering drug, a statin drug like a Zocor, or Lipitor, Crestor, anything that ends in or, pretty much is a cholesterol med, right? And they'll list a whole bunch of horrible side effects that it has and all that. Everyone just ignores those because they say them in such pretty voices and with pretty things happening in the background on the advertisements that we just ignore all those things and we get all these cholesterol-lowering meds. But the question is, why? If your cholesterol is 220, 250, 280, whatever, is cholesterol bad? And I'm here to tell you, got a lot of positive things. In fact, it's not bad at all. There's nothing bad about regular heavy cholesterol, whether it's LDL or HDL. These are just some of the things that cholesterol does for your body. It actually maintains your cell integrity. Without cholesterol, your cells would fall apart. That's not a good way to live. Let me tell you, you have over 1 trillion cells in your body. If they're all falling apart, that's kind of bad. So the cell integrity is from cholesterol. All right. It's needed by the brain, okay? And if again, brain function, obviously very important, and we have a lot of things that we use, such as omega oils and grapeseed extracts and things like that. But cholesterol is actually feeds your brain as well. It's wired to create hormones. So if you want hormones, either male or female sex hormones, or you want insulin, or you want sleep hormones, or you want anything, every single hormone in your body, the building block of hormones is cholesterol. So it's very, very much necessary. Cholesterol is required to create vitamin D in your body. Now, we all know you can get a lot of vitamin D if you go out in the sun or whatever, but if there was no cholesterol in your body would not have the ability to actually take that sunlight and create vitamin D with it. So, again, cholesterol, very, very necessary. And even LDL. LDL is supposed to be, by the way, the way I remember them, this is the way I was taught anyway, is LDL is lethal and HDL is healthy. So that's how so LDL is the bad cholesterol. Bad cholesterol, quote, unquote, the LDL, is actually required. It helps carry the HDL around your body and get it to where it needs to get. It's like a little taxi cab for your HDLs. So you need LDL as well in your body. So even this quote-unquote, they keep calling it bad cholesterol. There's nothing bad about it. Please understand that. So perhaps cholesterol is not as bad as we think it is. And that's the bottom line. I really want you to get that picture that maybe we've been lied to and kind of sold a bill of goods, and that's why we're getting all this bad information. Okay, so let me go through a couple more things for you. LDL, as we said, LDL, everyone, it gets a bad name. They say it shouldn't be over a certain range, or if your ratios are out of whack, your LDL that could be really, really bad for you. All right. Oxidized LDL is a problem. And I want to talk about that for a second. We talked about this on our last health talk, but the reason why we need supplements, why we need antioxidants, is because things oxidize in our body, and oxidation is a very simple process. It's, you leave a bicycle out in the rain, and your bicycle chain is going to get rusty. That's just the way it works. Things oxidize over time, and that same oxidation process happens in our cells. Oxidation is very simply it's an oxygen, it's an O2 molecule, and it's missing an electron in its outer orbit. It needs some help, so it goes around. It tries to steal electrons from every other part of your body, and as it's banging up against other molecules and atoms, it's stealing all these electrons. Your body oxidizes. It creates rust. Now, the rust on the inside of your body ends up being things like cancer and rheumatoid arthritis and stuff like that. But when your LDL gets oxidized, it actually gets sticky. My point is, if you have LDL in your body and it's slightly high according to the standards, but it's not oxidized at all, you're taking lots of antioxidants, you're eating well, everything's going well, you're fine. There's not really any danger factor there. It's when it starts oxidizing and getting sticky, that's your problem areas are. So don't think LDL is bad, but oxidized LDL is bad. Oxidized LDL basically it, by the way, can be measured. There is a one lab that is out in California that you can actually have a blood sample sent out there, and they will measure not just your LDL, but how much of your LDL is oxidized. So I thought that was pretty impressive. But what that tells me is people are starting to learn. They're starting to understand this concept that it's not LDL, it's that oxidation that you really want to measure. Okay, but it's very, very easy to get a homocysteine test. Okay, and this is really critical because homocysteine is an indicator that there is some scoring, some sort of etching going on the inside of your arteries, and it's caused by that sticky LDL going by and sort of scraping the arteries. I guess it's the easiest way to describe it. But homocysteine is the only real indicator of how much of that is happening. So homocysteine is actually an incredibly accurate indicator of your risk of heart disease and heart attack. So, and when they do a simple blood test, typically that's not on the test. But if you simply say to your doctor, please, next time we do this test, please measure my homocysteine level. And I'll tell you, anything below, I think it's 8.5, something like that. Really below 6.5 is where you want to be. So if you're taking some good antioxidants, you're eating well, you're exercising lightly at least, generally speaking, your homocysteine level should be low. And even if your cholesterol is high, then most likely it's not oxidized, so you're not in any danger. Okay, so homocysteine, and it's a very inexpensive test. That's one that anyone can do. Any lab around here can do it absolutely. So what doctors typically do, measuring homocysteine, they immediately see that your cholesterol is quote unquote high, particularly that LDL is a little bit high. So they want to put you on a statin drug. There was actually talk, believe it or not, of putting statin drugs in our water, sort of like they put fluoride, which, don't get me started, that's also a toxin. But they were talking about putting statin drugs in our water at one point. I'm like, this is getting a little bit crazy here. All right, statin drugs, they will pull down your cholesterol, LDL and HDL actually, and they'll do it relatively rapidly. Now, my question to you, though, is do you need that? Do we really care if it pulls down your LDL and your HDL, but it leaves what LDL is there completely oxidized? Is that really doing you any good? Now, besides that, if you notice when you see an ad for a statin drug, Zocor or Lipitor, and they play the pretty music while they're listing all the horrible stuff that it does to you on the side. But in addition to the side effects, at the very bottom of most of the ads, it says, does not reduce the risk of heart disease or heart attack. Like, why are we taking something that lowers our cholesterol but does not reduce the risk of heart disease or heart attack? It doesn't even make any sense. It's kind of madness when you think about it. And as a matter of fact, high cholesterol is not a risk factor for heart disease or heart attack. More than 50% of the people that die of a heart attack have normal cholesterol, so you can't even get a risk factor. See, where there's a lot of we've kind of been trained, and the reason, frankly, why we've been trained is it's all about money. The statin drug industry is the largest of all drugs that are out there. The statin drug industry is the largest one, and they are pushing it not just nationwide but worldwide. And it's the Zocor, Lipitor, Crestor. There's a whole bunch of different ones out there. But when you combine them all, it is the biggest conglomerate out there, and it's very hard to fight the pharmaceutical industry. And so what's happening now is statins are also the list of side effects and things like that is lethargy, swelling, numbness in your extremities, things like that. A reduction in your coenzyme Q10 level. Coenzyme Q10 is vital for your body. It's the most. It's an enzyme that's most prevalent in your heart muscle, of all, ironically, and it stimulates ATP production. Basically, it turns into energy. Okay, mitochondria. If you remember back in your biology classes or whatever, you see a picture of the human cell, and there's these little funny-looking, worm-looking things. That's your mitochondria, and they actually produce energy for you. And they're the most prevalent in your heart muscle because the heart is moving constantly. Even when you're sleeping, it's moving, and they better be moving all your life, right? So coenzyme Q10 is obviously very important. It keeps you alive, and what happens is the same enzymatic reaction that a statin drug does to to lower that cholesterol, it is also completely cutting off your ability to produce coenzyme Q10. So I would say at the very least, and I'm not a doctor, and we'll give a disclaimer at the end of this talk, but with statin drugs, if you're going to be on a statin drug, if you choose to stay on it because your doctor told you to, then sure that you are supplementing in addition to antioxidants and that sort of thing. Make sure you're supplementing with coenzyme Q10, which is also an antioxidant. That's one of its other properties. But make sure, because no other way that you can get that coenzyme Q10, you really need that in your body. Believe me, it's vital for lots and lots of good stuff. Okay, so cholesterol. How is it produced? All right, it's actually manufactured by your liver. It's one of the things, one of the many, there's a couple hundred things that your liver does, but one of them is it manufactures cholesterol. All right, and the reason why it manufactures cholesterol is because cholesterol, again, is the building block of your hormones. So if you have insulin and glucagon and you have estrogen, every hormone, testosterone, all your hormones in your body, the building block is produced by the liver as cholesterol. Okay, so think about that. Your liver is constantly pumping out cholesterol all the time. In fact, your liver produces more cholesterol than you could ever eat. And you'll see people that are on a completely vegetarian diet or a completely fat-free diet where they're actually ingesting zero cholesterol. There's not a gram of cholesterol goes in their body, and they have high cholesterol. So how does that happen? It's because your body produces cholesterol. Okay, so the cholesterol issue in your bloodstream has very little to do. I'm not telling you to go out there and eat horribly, and eat a lot of high fatty foods, but it has very little to do with what you eat. It has much more to do with liver and hormone production. So wouldn't it make sense then to kind of manage our hormone production a little bit better? All right. Now, what makes more sense? Eating less fat, controlling how much the liver produces. And when you start looking at the numbers and how much it produces, you start understanding that, wow, we need to adjust what we're eating so our liver doesn't produce as much cholesterol. And the way we do that is, frankly, through sugar management, not through fat management. Now, this is part of a slide that I showed a couple of weeks ago. Things that you can do. All right. Remember that, knowledge is power. Research this stuff. If a doctor's going to tell you to get on a statin drug or whatever, talk to him about it. Also, be a little bit bold with your doctor. Ultimately, you're in charge. If you went to a mechanic for your car and he told you, I've got something that's you have a problem that's going to cost $3,000 to fix it, you'd probably go down the street to a mechanic and say, hey, is he right? Is he correct? And then you ultimately would be the doctor. You'd be the mechanic. You decide which one you're going to go to, right? Do it with your doctor. Doctor's constantly just going with very traditional pharmaceutical approaches and doesn't talk a lot about changing habits and things like that. Consider the fact that you might want a new doctor. But if you're going to keep your doctor, be a little bit bold and say things like, hey, doc, I would like to go on an aggressive nutritional program to fight this cholesterol and hopefully wean off of statin drugs, and I want you to monitor me through the process. So in other words, you're kind of taking the driver's seat and allowing the doctor to do his job, but at the same time saying, no, this is the direction I want to go. Just be bold enough to do that, all right? And then take baby steps. Have to change every single aspect of your life all at once. That's kind of mind-blowing, and most people, if they make a lot of changes, they don't really keep them, okay? So eat with some portion control. Again, we talked about this. Watch that other video because it's very important. But portion control, low glycemic eating, not necessarily low carb eating. You can eat lots of vegetables and things like that, and a good amount of fruit is fine. But control the portions and stay away from higher glycemic stuff like the white breads, white rices, really overcooked pastas, things like that. Make sure water consumption is up. Again, drink about half of your weight in ounces of water. So if you weigh 200 pounds, 100 ounces of water a day. Water consumption is huge for all of the healing processes. Many of the ailments out there basically start with dehydration. And by the time you're thirsty, you're already dehydrated. So you need to think about water consumption, not just do it when you're thirsty. Take short walks, do something fun, get a little bit of exercise at a time. Again, you don't have to overdo it. Measure yourself, don't weigh yourself. Measuring around the waist at the belly button is a lot more indicative of your cholesterol because, why would that be? Well, your insulin-resistant fat stores are around your abdomen. They're actually between the organs in your abdomen, okay? So if your abdomen is getting larger, that's telling you that you're probably becoming more insulin resistant, which means you're pumping out insulin, which means what? It means your liver had to produce more cholesterol as the building block for that insulin. If the cholesterol is the building block, then all of a sudden your liver is just cranking out, plus all your other hormones are going crazy, so your liver's cranking out more cholesterol. So it's probably an indicator that you have an issue. So watch the weight, and watch the measurement, not the weight. And just remember that fat is not the enemy. Sugar is the enemy. And again, I'm not saying go out and eat, horrible stuff. And we can talk about fats for a second. But basically, a saturated fat, simply in its simplest terms, it's a little more complicated, but it's solid at room temperature. So butter sitting on the counter, it stays in a stick shape or whatever. That's a saturated fat. The bubbling within meats, things like that, sitting out on the counter, that's a saturated fat. And you don't want to have a tremendous amount of them, but they're not massive oxidation cars. They're simply a high-fat food. Okay, what you definitely want to avoid is anything that's hydrogenated or partly hydrogenated, and those are the ones that seem so innocent. That little vegetable oil or whatever oil sitting on your counter. It's clear. It's a nice clear plastic bottle, whatever. It never goes bad. It never rots. It never, it just there at room temperature forever. That's horrible. You want to avoid that. So, as far as fat goes, completely avoid the hydrogenated and partially hydrogenated, and then kind of minimize the saturated ones if you can. There's a couple of exceptions. Coconut oil is a one that is actually saturated. It's solid at room temperature, but it's very, very good for you. But in general, just stick to those rules, and just remember that it's the sugar. And when I say sugar, I also mean white bread, etc. Those turn to sugar right away in your body. Okay, so again, keep that simple. And supplements. The reason why you can kind of get the message here. What's happening is if your body or your particular LDL starts oxidizing, it gets sticky. Okay, so and I believe there are certain people that are just genetically predisposed or for whatever reason have a normally high cholesterol. They might have a cholesterol, 250 or something like that. Now, a typical doctor would say, "Oh my gosh, we got to get you right away on a statin drug." And this is not, I'm not giving medical advice here. I'm just saying my opinion. If you were my brother or sister, I would say, "Hey, wow, let's try getting on maybe twice as many antioxidants because you have twice as much LDL that the other person does. Well, get on some really good antioxidants, get on some omega oils and things like that, and use those to keep them from oxidizing, and then let's go out and measure our homocysteine levels instead of measuring our LDL cholesterol." All right. Learn what to look for on labels with food because they're very, very deceptive out there, and the names are always changing, and there's all kinds of bad stuff out there. Even better, don't eat food with labels. In other words, shop the perimeter of a store. As soon as you go down the aisles, typically everything's processed. So you can stick to the meat, produce, and that sort of thing around the outside. You're generally speaking going to be better off. Learn the test to ask for. I mean, we talked about homocysteine or even the oxidized LDL, and get a coach. Get someone that can help you, and that's what we provide a lot of those answers for people. We have a team of people, men and women. So whoever you're comfortable with, we can put you with the right person to help you answer any of your questions. There's no charge for it. It's just we just do it basically to help you out. But we'd love to help you. And to understand, as far as your health goes, I just quote: "At some point in your life, your health will be the most important thing to you. Why make it now?" And it's so true. If you think about it, at some point you're going to go, "Oh man, now I got to start taking care of myself because all of these symptoms are hitting me." Well, if you make it now, it's a lot easier to deal with it from a supplementation and eating well and some mild exercise now than it is to deal with it on the other end where it's surgeries and cancer treatments and various things like that. So our goal is to make sure that you're kind of opening your eyes, and that's why we're doing this series. Is we're trying to do it every Thursday, do a little half hour, and just educate people in general on what they can do. That is not it isn't complicated here. It's very simple concepts, but making those little changes means that you're taking care of things now instead of later. All right. And by the way, so we do have consultations and that sort of thing. You can also there's a health assessment that you can take online if you want to. Many of us have this access to this health assessment. Though if you just go to health.daviddelevante.com, you can take the health assessment. It takes about 10 minutes to do. I recommend doing it on your computer, but you can do it on an iPad as well, or I think even an iPhone. But it'll send you 3 free reports. And the 3 reports are kind of a risk analysis, a health analysis, and then what supplements it recommends for you. And then I do recommend taking or going back and watching 2 weeks ago. I did a webcast on diabetes because they really link, and I give you a lot more details on the types of things to eat and the water consumption and all that. That'll kind of fill in the gaps here. But I think hopefully you've seen they're very, very much related. The same diet, quote, I'm not saying a diet like a weight loss diet, but the same diet, the same level of activity, the same water consumption, all the things that help with the prediabetes have to help with the cholesterol, and it makes sense if you think about it, because you're messing with your sugar levels. Here comes the prediabetes issues. Well, guess what? That affects your hormones, which affects your liver, which produces more cholesterol, which puts you on the other end of the spectrum again. So it gets you in a mess. So, and then I got about 3 minutes here, and I just want to explain a little bit about why. If you notice now compared to 40 years ago or whatever, why it is that all of a sudden we're getting these massive rises in cholesterol, diabetes, cancer, heart disease, all these diseases are up. And I really believe it's because our food has gotten so depleted that when you got to get enough nutrients, you'd have to eat, to get the recommended amount of vitamin E in your diet, you'd have to eat 29 pounds of spinach a day. Okay, so that's cooked, boiled, drained without salt. That sounds really yummy. 4 7-pound salads a day. That's all you have to do. Or 2 pounds of almonds. Just massive amounts of food to get what we used to already have. So we used to already have that antioxidant protection that would keep your LDL from sticking, from oxidizing, and we just don't have that now. So when you're looking for a supplement, there's definitely a few things that you should definitely look for. Okay, quantity. Don't look for RDA levels. RDA levels are for vitamin deficiency disease prevention, and I don't know a whole lot of people these days that get rickets and scurvy and stuff like that. You want to look for optimal levels that are going to that are recommended for heart disease prevention and things like that, because like I said, we're not getting these deficiency diseases. RDAs were developed for food rations for the military, and they did their job because they kept people from getting rickets, but we're not dying of rickets. We're trying to get rid of the cancer, the heart disease, the cholesterol, et cetera, and that sort of thing. Look for quality in, if you're taking supplements, go through the supplement label, and any one of us can teach you afterwards how to do this. You can look down the supplement label, and I can point out 3 or 4 things for you. Matter of fact, I think it's going to be one of our upcoming topics on our calls on what to look for, because there are things like synthetic vitamin A that's actually extremely dangerous, and it's in most supplements that are out there. And then there's beta-carotene, which is actually completely healthy at any level, and no one ever died from eating too many carrots. That's where beta-carotene comes from. Okay, and then in general, look for plant-based versus chelated, and we can teach that as well, how to do that. So, and on my blog, daviddelevante.com, there is an article on there on what makes a good vitamin as well that can probably help you out with that. And then look for balance. There's things like, you need to not just take a vitamin E supplement, but you need to make sure it has the right cofactor, which in the case is selenium. Selenium, for instance, has 4 different cofactors that help it become bone and that sort of thing. So you want to make sure that you've got a really well-balanced product as well. And then alkalinity is really key. And these are going to be things that you may not be able to get all those answers to right away. And again, contact one of us. We'll be glad to help you. But alkalinity is very important for disease prevention and a whole bunch of other things. And frankly, most supplements pull your body into an acidic state instead of a basic or alkaline state. And you really want to stay. That's what makes a raw food or vegetarian food. The more raw, the more vegetarian you go, the more alkaline your body becomes, and disease has a hard time growing. It loves the acidic environment, but it hates the alkaline environment, so you kind of starve it that way. And then always look for anti-inflammatory products, whatever supplements you're taking, all that, and I do recommend, I recommend a really potent multi. I recommend an omega oil. I recommend some sort of boosters like curcumin and turmeric and grapeseed and things like that. These are anti-inflammatory in nature, and every disease process, this could be a great topic actually for a future talk as well, all disease processes involve inflammation. If you can put out the fire on the inflammation, you'll probably be doing a lot better as far as healthy as your health goes. And then FDA drug registered facilities, a lot of times people are just producing, either they're having other companies produce the stuff for them, where frankly you don't know whether the product's going to dissolve, you don't know whether it's going to get where it needs to get, and you have no idea what's in it. So I want to make sure that the quality is up to par as well. And then for tonight, I'm gonna sign off. I think Nick has a couple of closing remarks here that he needs to make. But keep coming back every Thursday. We're going to do these. We're going to try to record them each time and put them out right away for you. And each Thursday we'll try to educate you and just get you a little closer to health. And we hope that we help you along with your journey.
Outstanding, Dave. So yes, you're correct. Next week we will have Dr. Stacia as our host, and she will be talking about supplementation. And we'll say this is the end of our recording, and these statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. The products mentioned are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Thank you for joining us, and we'll talk to you again next week.